Good morning. I'm Marie May from Addison Township Senior Center.
And I'm Dawn Medici with Oxford Township Parks and Recreation. And our special guest today is Chad Day, from the Retirement Agency. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
We
you
have
for
all
coming.
kind of questions for you.
Yes.
Good. I'm ready to answer them.
Yeah. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Retirement Agency and why you're here today.
Sure. Yeah. So my company's the Michigan Retirement Agency.
Sorry.
Yep. My wholesaling firm's the Retirement Agency.
Okay.
So I have two different companies there. But yeah, so I started financial wholesaling back in 2007, right before the financial crash.
Okay.
And I wholesaled financial products, specifically annuities, fixed, indexed annuities, more conservative investments. And our big clients were Raymond James, UBS, Merrill Lynch, some of the big broker-dealers or brokerage firms out there. And obviously the financial crash happened in 2008, right?
Good.
Where people fled to safety, which really helped our industry, our business, being in the conservative investment realm, to where, we built one account, Raymond James specifically. We started about 40 million in annual production, or annual premium to 1.4 billion in 2015 annually. So when our biggest client now controls 90% of our business,
Right. Yeah.
our income, they ended up buying us in 2015. So that's where we parted ways. I went off on my own. I started with senior centers, senior community centers, just kind of going in, ask the financial guru, doing whistleblower type presentations, right? Here's what's happening behind the scenes, right? With your financial advisors, with your insurance agents, just to make people aware, what to look out for. And still have a boutique financial service wholesaling company, but going to these senior centers and scheduling the appointments, and having these group sessions, 90% of the questions were about Social Security and Medicare.
Yes.
That's what it was about. So I knew enough to be dangerous at that time, but I was like, all right, it's more educational. Instead of me selling somebody, an annuity or a financial advisor to sell an annuity, I like the educational side of it. So that's what drew me to Social Security
So
and
are
Medicare.
you a financial advisor?
I'm not a financial advisor.
Okay.
Technically, I'm an insurance agent.
Okay.
To be a financial advisor, you have to be securities licensed to
Okay.
be able to sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds.
Okay.
Insurance agents, you just need a life insurance license in the state of Michigan to be able to solicit or sell fixed annuities, fixed indexed annuities, immediate annuities, life insurance, long-term care.
Okay.
Okay.
Those types of insurances. So that now I'm about 90%, Medicare and health insurance. But I still have, the other companies that, are kind of on cruise control and work separate from the health insurance side. So.
Right. Well, Medicare, we get a lot of questions and people come in and asking. And so explain to us what the Medicare schedule looks like.
Yeah.
When can you get on
Over the
Medicare?
course of the year, like what should we expect throughout the course of the year? And when should I start being concerned?
So the enrollment periods is what we're
Perfect.
looking
Start
for.
at the beginning.
So
Yes.
Medicare is full enrollment period. So
Okay.
so if you're 65 plus and you've paid into Medicare for 40 quarters throughout your lifetime, working life, you qualify, you're eligible for Medicare.
Okay.
Or if you're under 65 and you have a disability, right, you will be eligible for Medicare 24 months after the start of disability. If you're approaching age 65, you have what's called an initial enrollment period,
Okay.
which is your 65th birth month, 3 months prior, 3 months after. So it's a 7-month period. That's your initial enrollment period. That's where you have the window to sign up for Medicare Part A and or Part B. Okay, so that's the first
Okay.
enrollment period. But most people, as they hit 65, they're working, they have employer coverage through their employer or their spouse's employer.
Yeah.
So you can delay signing up for Medicare until you lose that qualifying health coverage. Okay. So if you're working at, Oxford Township,
Yep.
Parks and Rec, right? And you're 68 years old. You can avoid any late enrollment penalties by just delaying that Part A or Part B.
But you have to say you're going to delay.
Nope.
No?
Don't
Okay.
have to. So if you're 65 and you don't have to sign up, right? But if you don't sign up and you do not have that qualifying health coverage, and fast forward to age 67, 68, and you want to get onto Medicare, there's a form that you can get on ssa.gov that you need to have your employer sign off on that says, yes, they've had qualifying coverage through us since this date.
Okay.
Okay, but if you can't provide that letter or that proof, they will ding you with late enrollment penalties. Yeah, which can be substantial the longer that you wait.
Okay.
So yeah, that's called a special election period,
So-
losing employer coverage.
I would say most seniors need to have someone like you to advise them.
Absolutely.
That
And
would, yeah,
I'll say 10 years ago, we didn't know that.
yeah,
We didn't know that there was somebody out there that you could call and say, help.
yeah.
I don't even know what Medicare means, let alone get on Medicare or
Right.
get on it ahead of
Yeah.
time.
Well, it's a big business
So,
now.
but this is good.
As more and more people, the boomers are approaching
Aging,
age
yeah.
65, aging into Medicare.
Yes.
Each year, 10,000 plus daily, are aging into Medicare. So it's big business, right? There's firms from across the country that are consolidating, building big, institutions to hound you guys,
Right.
right? So CMS, the governing body of Medicare, they each year, it seems like the last 4 or 5 years, they've set strict rules, right, that us as agents or carriers or agencies have to abide by. And the first thing is permission to contact. So me as an agent, I need permission from you to contact you, right? If I don't have that permission and they audit me, see you later license,
Right,
all
you're
residual commissions, everything, right?
done.
So it's very prevalent because I'm sure, right, you're approaching Medicare, you're getting hounded by phone
Yeah.
calls, by
TVs,
letters,
yeah. Direct mail.
TV ads, everywhere you go, right? There's an advertisement. That advertisement is there, right, to entice you to call them. So
Right.
now they have permission to contact you.
Right.
So what often happens, right, if I want you to contact me, I'll say, hey, call now. We have, a Medicare plan that is going to give you, $2,500, annually that you can use towards over the counter or utility bill help or this or that, or we'll give you $5,000 towards dental, just all these, bells and whistles.
Right.
But those plans do exist, but for a very, very small segment of the population, right? But it's to entice you,
Sure.
right, to call. So that's the first thing. If you've never given somebody permission to contact you, just say, hey, I'm going to contact CMS and I will report you, right? Try to
Right.
gather as much information as you can. And, I advise you to actually do that. Because it's the only way to get rid of some of these bad actors, your deceptive,
Sure.
Actors. So yeah, need permission to contact. And the second thing that we need is a scope of appointment. So let's say you've given me permission to contact you. Okay, I did. We schedule an appointment before I can even talk about plans. I need you to sign a scope of appointment with you checking off what you want me to talk to you about.
Okay.
If I don't get that, right, I cannot help you
Okay.
compliantly.
They don't
So-
make it
Alright.
easy.
No.
They don't.
No.
All right.
And I have, one other thing is I have to record all conversations, all phone calls.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so I want to hear more about that
Yeah.
here, but we have to take a break, so we'll be right back. Welcome back to senior break. And before break, Chad was telling us a little bit about what the appointment kind of looks like. If you have a scheduled appointment, you have to go through this checklist and you have to record those conversations. Quite interesting. And before that, we were talking about the enrollment period. So you really didn't touch on, like, what if I'm already on Medicare?
Yeah.
And let's say I'm not happy with the coverage that I have, how does that play a part in the enrollment period?
Sure. Yeah. So starting in September, right, you're going to see a ton of TV ads, 30-minute blocks within TV from Blue Cross, Humana, some of the bigger carriers, to talk to you about their new Medicare Advantage plans that are coming out for the next year. So October 1st of every year, CMS approves all the new Medicare Advantage plans and prescription drug plans for the following year. Come October, and that's legally when, or compliantly when we can talk to you about the plans.
Okay.
Come October 15th, that is when you can add, drop, or change an Advantage plan, Medicare Advantage plan, or a prescription drug plan. Okay, so and that goes from October 15th to December 7th every year. Okay, so very important, right? If you have a Medicare Advantage plan or a prescription drug plan,
right,
those plans change every single year. And this past year, it was very, very different. 2024 plans to the 2025 plans. A lot of big changes.
A lot of changes.
So definitely contact somebody. You'll get an annual notice of change from your carrier that will tell you, right, what the changes are within your plan. And if you're unhappy with it, call somebody,
Sure.
talk to the carrier, see what your options are.
Right.
But then they'll give you kind of a one-time out the first quarter of the year. So come January 1 through March 31st. Yeah, I know there's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I have an educational webinar, right, that I'm happy to share with
Sure,
you both,
would
and
love
you
it.
can, give to whomever that would like to have an hour-long,
Sure.
presentation to talk about it. But the first quarter of the year, it gives a one-time out. Hey, I made a mistake, with my plan, with my Medicare Advantage plan. They allow you to change your plan one time, Medicare Advantage plan to another Medicare Advantage plan. So.
One time your whole lifetime, or
Each year.
Each year, okay.
Each year,
All right.
yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
One time?
We can't. We
Yeah.
can't advertise for that. You
Okay.
just have to know.
Sure.
That it's Medicare Advantage open enrollment period.
Okay.
It's on TV.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, a lot.
Yep.
Change it, call now and change.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
So
Wow.
a lot of enrollment periods. So to get it was kind of a long-winded response, but you should contact an agent.
Yeah.
Somebody that you trust,
Sure.
somebody that has every carrier at their disposal.
Well, if some of our viewers are interested in getting in contact with you, how should they get in contact with you?
You can call the township offices, right? You can actually schedule an appointment. Dawn has access to my calendar, where she can just.
Give an email or a phone number?
Yeah,
that
my
you give
email,
out?
sure. Yeah, it's Chad, CHAD, @theretirementagency.com. You can just call my cell phone.
Okay.
It's 248-464-1345. But you can call into the township offices
Right.
and get my.
It's a Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And our number is 248-628-1720, and any one of us can get that appointment scheduled for you with Chad. So, that's great.
Yeah, we've been working together for quite some time.
Yep.
And I've met a lot of great people.
Yes.
Helped out a lot of people that, want somebody to talk to, right? Are tired of talking to somebody on the
Sure.
phone from Arizona, Texas, Florida. Just having somebody local that understands the
Sure,
networks,
because if
the
you
plans.
call and then you forget to ask something, you call back, you get another person. You got to start your story all over again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good chance.
So it's nice to
right.
have a person that,
Right.
You're saying if you call a carrier,
Right.
directly,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it's,
Where if they contact you, they're going to get you each time.
they'll
And so
get
you're
me, yeah.
familiar with you, and
Right.
you'll be familiar with them
Right.
and be able to answer some.
And have unbiased approach.
Sure.
Right? If you call a carrier, right, they're
course.
biased, right, to their plans. If you have somebody that's like a broker, right, that has every plan that at their disposal, if not most of the plans.
Now, are some of those brokers and or those bigger companies, they're really not into the know of what's right here in Michigan either, right? Like because doctors play a big part of this too, and
Sure.
you
Yep.
know, I mean, you would be somewhat in the hospital systems and stuff.
Yeah.
You're right here in the heart of Michigan,
with
and
Yeah.
you're familiar with all of that. So that should also be added value.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So, this is kind of a good segue to get into the different routes that you can go.
Sure.
Right? So you have original Medicare, which is Part A, Part B. Part A, just think hospital, covers your hospital services. Part B, think of your outpatient services, your doctor office visits, specialist visits. We don't have time necessarily to get into everything that it covers, but that's original Medicare, Part A and Part B. Without getting into it all, general rule of thumb is it's going to cover about 80% of your healthcare costs.
And D, what does D cover?
Part D, that's prescription drugs.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have Part A, you got Part B. So you have that 20% gap, right? So I'm sure we've heard Medigap insurance.
Yes.
It's also known as Medicare supplement insurance. That's where you would purchase from a private carrier Medigap or Medicare supplement insurance, which will cover that other 20%.
Now, is that something like AARP or Blue Cross Blue Shield? I mean, like that type of.
Yeah, a lot of carriers offer
Okay.
them. AARP United Healthcare, so they're co-branding.
right.
Blue Cross, there's a lot.
Okay.
There's a lot of carriers, but there's different plan types
Within those carriers?
within the supplemental plans.
So really, you have, a person like you would have to know what I need to give me the right carrier, or the right help, I should say.
Yeah, it's our
Right.
job to
Yeah.
know the questions to ask.
Right. I
you know.
mean, if you're taking 2 prescriptions or if you're taking 20,
Yeah,
maybe that would make a difference to a carrier, or?
for sure it does.
Okay.
Yeah, so every October 1, CMS comes out with their drug formulary,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yeah.
carriers design their plans based on the drug formularies. There was big changes, big turnover from 2024 to 2025 this year due to the Inflation Protection Act. Part of that was they capped your maximum out-of-pocket for prescription drugs, for approved, Medicare-approved prescription drugs, to $2,000. So, looking back, a year ago when we knew this was coming out, I'm like, oh, that's going to help out a lot of my clients. They're paying $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year in prescription drugs.
Right.
However, insurance companies aren't going to take on all that additional liability, right? Going from 8,000 maximum to 2,000, right? That's a big
gap.
big gap that insurance companies are liable for. So they're in the money-making business. So they started removing some drugs that were approved,
Right.
now are not approved, right? That they knew that they're vulnerable to. Where in a lot of the quoting that I was doing, a lot of the clients I thought were going to be helped were not. And a lot of the clients that were in very good position, good standing, right, had increased costs, right? Because an insurance company is going to offset that liability by charging more copays or increasing their deductible. So,
Yeah.
It's a lot.
at the high level, yeah, $2,000 maximum
sounds
out of
great.
pocket, but we don't
Right.
know the underlying effects until people actually got in the plan.
right.
So,
All right.
yeah. So prescription drug plans is Part D.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's really the driver, in making recommendations to clients is their medications.
Okay. All right. Well, we have to take another break, so we'll be right back. welcome back. And we were talking a little bit about Medicare Part A and Part B, but then really the importance of the supplemental part of it, as well as like,
What you choose.
right, the prescription covered, the Part D. Why is that all important? Because,
Yeah.
and why does that really
And really,
matter?
if the age is 65, when you're 55, 60, you might not be thinking about that. So when should a person try to look into other options? And is there something that they can, besides you, I mean, is there something that they can look into and
Or like a
film or
class they
class or
should-
something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just give them an
Some
idea when there's-
educational components to help get somebody
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
when they say 64, because
Yeah.
that's when they'll get serious about it, when they're 64.
Right, yeah. Well, you should start thinking about Medicare, I would say, early 60s. Yeah, 60s, 61. And there's plenty of classes out there. If you have a financial advisor, they should be talking to you about Medicare because it plays an important role in, financial planning. But yeah, 60, 61, I'd start looking at plenty of classes. If you Google Medicare, good luck. It's a lot. It's,
Yeah.
system overload there. But yeah, there's plenty of webinars, plenty of classes. A lot of the townships and other communities, offer them or
things,
bring people
sure.
in like me. But yeah, so Medicare, it's an overwhelming topic. It's very complex. Just focusing on Part A and Part B, original Medicare, it's important, right? But at the end of the day, when you get to age 65, it's about identifying the two routes that you can go
Okay.
beyond Part A and Part B.
All right, yep.
Okay, so let's start with the supplemental plan route, or Medigap, same thing. How that works is you have original Medicare, Part A, Part B. Okay, it covers 80%, general rule of thumb. You want that Medigap plan to cover that other 20%.
Right.
So if we're looking at a plan type G supplemental plan, okay, your premium, you'll have a premium, an additional premium you'll have to pay. It might be $130, $140 a month, right? But it'll cover, everything that original Medicare does not cover outside of the Part B deductible, which is $257 for this year. So pretty darn good coverage, right? If all you're paying is a premium, right, for
Right.
that supplemental plan, and your Part B premium that we didn't talk about, which this year for most people it's $185 a month. All you have to do is you pay a small $257 deductible, annual deductible, and you essentially have full health care.
Okay.
So if it's in your budget, I always recommend starting out, or I lean towards a supplemental plan for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's great coverage. Two, you can see anybody that you want, any doctor that you want.
See, and that's would be important to me.
Yeah, if they accept Medicare, right? So if they
Okay.
accept Medicare, right, you can see anybody that you want. No questions asked, no referrals.
Okay.
So a lot of people favor that. Maybe, they know they have a heart condition or they have cancer, or they have some chronic condition that, hey, I don't want to go to Henry Ford, I don't want to go up to Lapeer, I want to go to Cleveland Clinic, right? Go out west, get the primo, institutions for my health care. If you're a snowbird, like many of us are, right? We don't want to necessarily deal with networks. So if we're going to Arizona, Florida, South Carolina, we want to see whomever we want to see. No
When you
question
need to,
that-
right.
When you need
Yeah.
to.
Right. That's
Yep.
that's key.
Yep. So that's route one.
Okay.
And agencies, we're happy to quote. It's a very transparent process. We just quote out supplemental plans, and it goes through the premiums. It's the exact same coverage, right? For each carrier, it's just different premiums.
Okay.
Us as agents, what we look out for, or what we should look out for, is they will increase those premiums each year. So if you started at 130, next year it might be 140, 155, right? It goes up over time, to where I look at the carriers that provide their renewal premium history. And if they don't have good history, I'm not going to recommend
recommend
them.
them, okay.
Yeah. So it's very important you get into the carrier that has good history. So that's route one. Route two is more network-based, traditional health insurance. It's Medicare Advantage plan.
Okay.
And that's what the government incentivizes us, trust me, to push you to a Medicare Advantage plan. Now that's network-based, it's an HMO, it's a PPO, HMO point of service, right? So different types of networks. We need to make sure your doctor is in network. So we look at all your doctors,
Okay.
right? Make sure that they're in network. And then we look at your medications because those Medicare Advantage plans typically offer prescription drug or
So-
Part D.
If you go to a doctor that's not in your network,
Yeah.
I know you would probably choose a different doctor, or what happens? You just have to pay the whole thing if they
Depends
don't
on your
cover
plan
it?
type. Yeah, so if it's a PPO, as an example, right, you can go out of network. They just have different costs,
Gotcha.
right? So they have to accept
Yeah.
insurance.
Okay.
And they may charge you more.
Okay.
Yeah. And HMO, very strict, right? You need to get a referral to that specialist,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you ended up going to a different doctor that wasn't in that network, yeah, you're fully out of pocket. So,
So you really have
You
to,
have to know.
you really have to know and pre-plan and you've got to be asking all of those right questions because I
yeah,
trying to do this on my own, there's no way.
yeah.
No. Because if you needed a new doctor, you'd pick one in the plan, if it was a new one.
Sure.
That's gonna pay,
Yeah.
so.
Makes sense.
There's a lot.
There sure
There is
is.
a lot, yeah. But we
There's a
use
lot.
that, the meetings that we have, it's just all about laying out those two routes side by side and giving you the quotes, multiple quotes from carriers from within those two routes. And that's where the conversation really starts, right? I don't typically talk about Part A, Part B,
Okay.
because it's at the end of the day, we're looking at the
Yeah.
additional coverage.
Right, and what's important and key to that individual person because,
But it's not as scary if you have a professional as yourself.
Right.
That you know is gonna help you and lead you, to help you understand all this.
Right.
Or some of this, I should say.
Sure.
right,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you're not
can
gonna
know.
offer necessarily the same things to me that you would
Right.
offer to Marie because we're
Can't
different.
study together.
No,
Yeah, that's right.
right, right.
I've had a lot of
so-
clients, husbands, wives, that are in different plans.
Yeah.
One's in a supplement, one's in an advantage plan, right?
Yeah.
It just
Depends upon the needs, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
One
right.
important thing I want to talk about is so if you're new to Medicare, right? You're turning 65 or you've been working beyond, and then you get into Medicare at age 67 or whatever. You have guaranteed issuance within a supplemental plan.
Okay,
That's the one time that you have guaranteed issuance. By law, based on the ACA, they have to issue you a supplemental plan. Okay, they won't look at pre-existing conditions. However, if you started with an Advantage plan, Medicare Advantage plan, and 2 years later, and we have a lot of appointments, that you schedule for me, people come in and they have an Advantage plan. They say, Chad, I'd love to look at a supplemental plan. My costs are getting kind of nickel and dimed. I have all these co-pays. I can't really keep track of them. I know right then and there they have some underlying condition or health concern that they won't be able to get approved, or it's very unlikely that they're going to get approved for a supplemental plan if they wanted to go to that.
okay,
So when you're new to Medicare, you're guaranteed to be issued a supplemental plan, right? If you start with an Advantage plan, fast forward a couple of years, you're not guaranteed to get into a supplemental plan.
Okay.
They go through health underwriting or health questioning.
sure,
So that's why I tend to lean towards supplemental plans starting out, because it's the one time,
Right.
that you're guaranteed to be issued that plan. And there's a lot of people that would save a ton of money, right, if they were in a supplemental plan once they develop those health concerns. And when we're 65, we're young and healthy, right? We don't think,
Right.
10, 15
Yeah.
10 years down the
Yeah.
road,
Yeah.
yep. All right, well, we're to the end of our time here. So if Chad, if you could just share your number again and how they can get in contact with you, that'd be great. And
Sure, yep. Cell phone 248-464-1345. Email chad@theretirementAgency.com. And you can obviously contact Marie and don't
Yeah.
as well.
All right, well, thank you so much, Chad.
Yep, my
Enjoyed
pleasure.
having you today, and we'll definitely have to have you back because we do have some other
There's lots of
questions.
questions, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
my
Thank you
pleasure.
for coming.
All right,
Thank you.
see you next time.
Bye-bye.